This is Food for Thought with Deborah Walker. Hi everyone, this is Deborah Walker with Food for Thought, and today I welcome to the show Karin Worthy, who practices yoga at the Boco Yoga Centre. Okay, hi Karin, how are you today?
Fine, nice to speak to you, Debbie.
Now tell my audience a little bit of background about yourself and Boco, because it's a holistic centre of health in Surrey with a difference, isn't it?
Well, we started back in 2005, and the vision was to integrate both physical exercises like yoga and Pilates with holistic treatments and take a more rounded approach. And today we have a centre in Surbiton, and there are a range of different therapists, psychotherapists, acupuncture, massage therapists. Our latest one is a neuromuscular therapist, which is fascinating. Wow. And also a wide range of different types of yoga and Pilates classes. Oh. And it's all very exciting. It's gone really well. And quite a number of our members have gone on to train as yoga teachers and yoga therapists, which I think is even more exciting.
Well, that's amazing. That's how inspiring you are.
Well, it's not us. It's the the principles behind it, which are the sort of life-changing, I think.
And just explain those principles then for us.
Well, I think the interesting thing with yoga, and particularly using yoga in its therapeutic context, rather than just as a keep fit exercise regime, is that in yoga therapy, they say that the subtle drives the gross. In other words, our problems, we may have a physical manifestation of a problem, but the problem is often driven by something deeper. In Western terms, it's if you like, the psychological problems that we have, the mind. And very often in Western medicine, the two are treated separately. And there isn't enough integration. So the doctor treats whatever physical ailments you have, but if the problem, it may be driven by stress and anxiety, it may be driven by worries about one's jobs, life in general, or it may be something that goes back much further, that are unresolved problems, and they come out. It may be skin problems, it may be sleep problems, it may be aches and pains, whatever it is. So just treating the physical misses a bigger area. And then sometimes you go to a counselor to deal with the if you like, the problems that are anxiety, stress, etc. But you need the physical as well. So by pulling the two together, you have an approach which can bring about a great deal of healing.
And you do work with people who have got chronic and terminal illnesses. How I ended up talking to you in the first place about the event you were running around cancer.
That's right. Yes. And if you take cancer, for example, no one would say that yoga is going to cure cancer, but a lot of the problems that arise when you have cancer, the stress and the worry and the fear, and the unhappiness that it creates also within your family and the wider circle, yoga can help you reduce the stress and start to heal in the mind and face whatever it is. Because if you have got terminal cancer, maybe the best you can do is to have a sort of extension of your life by eating differently, by living differently. You can extend it. It may be that at the end you do die from cancer, but you can die slowly and quickly and unhappily, or have a longer life and enjoy what you've got. So I think that yoga is very, very beneficial for reducing the stress that is caused by something like cancer.
And it is just one part of a very holistic way of looking at your life, isn't it? Because I know that when I learnt it 20 odd years ago, I went to this little village hall and was taught by this as I would say, an old boy, basically, who just looked incredibly flexible. He'd obviously spent half of his life abroad, and it was highly alternative when I started it. And, you know, and everybody walked in with their towels. And so there was no flashy yoga mats or bags or anything like that. Everyone walked in with just a big bath towel. And I have to be honest, everyone was incredibly old to me at that point. And, you know, they were probably in their like late 40s, because I was early 20s at that point. And it was just a very different philosophy that these people had. It was absolutely fascinating to how we tended to live life.
Yes. It's interesting that very often people come to yoga when they're a bit older, not necessarily because they have any health problems, but they start looking for something more than just the body beautiful, if one like. When you're in your teens and your 20s, you are perhaps more conscious of, you know, you're worrying about, you know, does my bum look big, if you like, and you're less concerned about the quality of your life. You're living life at a pace that is less introspective. I'm generalizing now, but I think you know what I mean. And as we get a little older, we start to look for something else. And so it's not uncommon for, if you were to take an average age profile, it's somewhere between the late 30s and 60s, 70s. We have members who are in their 70s doing regular yoga. And just keeping active with gentle movement and using breathing can really help people. The other thing that a lot of people suffer from is because of stress, they don't sleep well. And the lack of sleep and the poor quality of sleep then has a knock-on effect on their daily life. And again, yoga can help you to improve the quality of your sleep. If you do a gentle practice at night with a lot of breathing and relaxation, you will sleep better. We have also got classes on yoga nidra, which is actually, the nidra is the Sanskrit word for sleep, and it is about a guided meditation and to help you sleep. And people find that very, very beneficial.
So just take us through a little bit of that in a bit more detail, because people can probably reel off different types of yoga, but even I'd never heard of that.
Well, breathing is, if I was to say what's the most important thing in yoga, it's perhaps the breath, you know, the prana, the breath, that's the source of life. If you stop breathing, you die. And by using the breath to oxygenate the body, we can help ourselves hugely. But when we come to when we're stressed, you know, this breath becomes very short when we're stretched, and if we're restless, we're often agitated. The mind is rushing around and it can't relax. So by learning to stop the rushing around of the brain, the activities of the mind, all that sort of helter-skelter, and just bring yourself into the present moment to focus on something that it may be just a mental picture of something that you find beautiful and relaxing, and use the breath, you can actually reduce those that agitation. And leads into a deeper sleep, a better quality of sleep.
Wow. And so many people I meet just don't have any quality of sleep anymore.
Absolutely.
And they are up 2 or 3 times in the night and often feel that that's the norm.
And of course, once you get into that cycle of sleep deprivation, it affects everything else. So it's just a little thing that can trigger a whole series of other problems.
So in many respects, what you're doing there is almost retraining the body.
Yes.
Fabulous. And how long are those sessions? All night?
No, people come and they love it. They bring their pillows and their blankets. It's a form of guided meditation. And they just relax, and it's about an hour and a half, an hour and a quarter, hour and a half, depending on whether you're a beginner or if you're sort of continuing. And we do it on Friday evening once a month and Sunday evening once a month. So it's twice a month.
Wow.
But the first Friday of the month and the third Sunday of the month.
Why do you think that yoga has become so popular? Because, you know, as I said years ago, nobody had really heard of it. And I was just considered this mad old hippie who went to this hall. I was. And when I got there, I just kind of felt that, you know, that everybody was the same in many respects. But now you speak to a lot of women in particular, and yoga has become part of their life, and is almost everyone's almost, you know, their desire is to become a yogini in some respects. Why is it? And I do find, I'm not going to be absolutely honest, if I do it in a gym, it really infuriates me, because it's almost like, you know, it becomes competitive of who is the best at doing the pose, and I do find it's very different practice in different places depending on the philosophy.
Yes.
But why do you think it's become so popular? Is actually my question.
Yes, I think there are a range of different reasons. The Western mind is sort of there's often this sort of desire to have proof that this works. You know, we can't accept it unless it's proved, and there's been increasing research by various organizations, reputable organizations, about yoga and the impact of yoga on a range of different things. So there's been, if you look through the media, you will find more and more research papers coming out that find that people are better able to focus, they process information better, their memory is better. You know, there's a whole range of different things that the research is proving that yoga can offer. So I think that has moved it from when, I remember those days when yoga was sort of out there on the edge with the sandals and the beards. And it's, people are more willing, you know, men, for example, tend to be more skeptical about these things, but they like to be, they're more likely to be convinced. Professional sports people now use it as a regular part of their physical program. Andy Murray has attributed some of his improved focus and fitness to his use of yoga. Professional footballers, people like Ryan Giggs, have been practicing yoga for many years and attributes his longevity in the profession to yoga, to keeping more supple, you know. So I think that has given it a little bit more respectability. Not, that sounds a bad word to use, but for some people, they wanted that validation, that it isn't just a wild thing, it is actually something that can offer. For other people, it's simply their life is more stressed today perhaps than ever, and they come to it and they find, yes, this does work. So some people it's theoretical validation, for other people it's just simply doing it and finding this gives them something that they need in their life. Whichever way you get to it, I think for those people who come to it with an open mind, they get hooked and it becomes part of their life. It isn't just like going to, at the beginning of the year, the gyms always make lots of money as people sort of, oh my God, I've eaten too much over Christmas. I feel awful. My New Year's resolution is to lose weight. And off they go to the gym. And by the end of January, the gym is empty again. Yeah. But we have people who've been coming to classes since we started, and they are absolutely regular, and yoga is part of their life. And that sort of commitment brings you the results that we talk about. Doing the odd class and then giving it up won't actually deliver the benefits. Like everything else, you've got to be, you've got to want to do it and to put some commitment into it.
And have it, and it's the consistency as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's not about doing long hours of yoga or putting your legs behind your neck and saying Yeah. It's not a gymnastics practice. People do become more supple as time passes, but that's not what yoga is all about, And I think that people need to appreciate that when we do a posture, there's not one right way of doing it and all the others are wrong. For example, for any posture, there is a reason why we're doing it. We may be perhaps working for a lateral stretch, for example, and we can do a posture in the full version, but we could do a modified version, and it's just as valid to achieve what we were trying to achieve, whether it's a full posture or a modified posture, we're still getting the benefit. And that's what's important. It's not how it looks, it's how it feels to the body that makes the difference.
And that's a really interesting point, because when I do practice in a gym, it's very easy with, you can hear in the background music, there's lots of more distractions. It's very easy, I find, to almost injure myself because I've effectively pushed it too far, because I've not managed to get totally in touch with my body. Whereas if I do my practice at home, I don't tend to push my body anywhere near as far. And the next day it will feel amazing.
Yes, absolutely. I think that one of the important things when you do a yoga class is to learn to focus inwards, to stop, whether it's looking at what the others are doing, am I doing it better than them or are they better than me? Listen to what the teacher is saying and focus on your own body. When I'm in a class, I'm actually pretty well unaware of what anyone else in the class is doing. And it's very interesting then if I'm teaching a class, I'm quite surprised at what I see, because I haven't seen any of that when I was in the class. And I think that it is that learning to focus, learning to come into yourself and put away all the other daily anxieties, Have I got to go to the supermarket? Did I forget the milk? Have I got enough money in the parking meter? All those sort of little thoughts that can flit in and out of your brain. And then you say, stop that. It still goes on. And actually learn just how to put it away and just become more centered. And you will find at the end of the class, you feel very balanced and relaxed.
And I suggest to a lot of my clients to go and do yoga or meditation, and I see that yoga is a real way of almost marrying the two together for them. In many respects, it gives them space away, doesn't it?
Yes.
For people who've got incredibly busy lives, it does just allow them to, not just have to go and do a workout or anything like this, but it is about that space aspect, isn't it?
I mean, we say that yoga is self-empowering, that you can be your own healer, because once you get the practice, you can go on your own and do that practice. I do a very short daily practice every day, 15 to 20 minutes every morning, and I feel so much better for it. I wake up sometimes with sort of a bit of stiffness, a bit of backache, and just doing that simple exercise practice every day makes me feel so much better. I might be a bit chesty in the morning, coughing, how you get the sniffles and so on.
Yeah.
Just doing some breathing, and I find that my breath relaxes, and it helps. So it's given me so much for my own life that's what's convinced me. It's not actually at the end of the day all the theory. It's what it's given me that's made me convinced that it's beneficial.
Well, when you're talking about the fact that people can get in touch with their bodies, and people are incredibly out of touch with their with their bodies and with what's going on in them, which is why they often hand over responsibility to other people about their health issues, and why sometimes chronic illness almost is a shock to them.
Yes. I think also that we have grown up in an era where, because medical science over the 20th century made such huge advances, we've become conditioned to thinking that there will be a cure for this. There's going to be a magic pill or an operation or whatever it is, and that will cure it, because so many things that 50 years ago, 60 years ago were killers are not killers anymore. So we somehow want so badly to believe that someone out there is going to find a cure. And sometimes the cure it comes from within us. And we mustn't think about someone else doing it for us.
And that's so true, isn't it? In so many ways. Now, you do work with a lot of clients with terminal illness. How can yoga help with some of the physical effects of those illnesses?
Well, I will use a sort of quite a personal example. My daughter-in-law has a brain tumor. She collapsed just before she went into labor with her second child, and they found a brain tumor that had been there obviously for many years and had somehow sort of activated and started growing. And it's inoperable because it's growing into the brain. It was, of course, a horrible shock to all of us. She has been such a fit, healthy person. She was a sportswoman. She swam competitively, and it was just such a shock. And she's been through a course of radiotherapy, but in conjunction with this, she has been doing yoga on a regular basis, and it's yoga therapy rather than sort of the sort of keep fit yoga. And I think that it's helped her to relax, because there is this huge stress that comes when you have something like this, which is so serious. And if you think about the brain, there is what they call the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, and one provides the fight or flight. So if you see a child on a road and there's a car coming, you get this huge rush of adrenal hormones, and you have this energy, this burst, and you rush out and you grab the child. And you say afterwards sometimes, I don't know how I did that, but the body just took over. And the energy that flowed into you, but that you're so overstimulated almost. Equally, if to relax, we've got to go the other way. We've got to reduce that. So yoga can help in that process. Gentle movement also can help, because you can get physical side effects from cancer. So, using gentle movement as well as the breathing can help, especially if people are further on in and they're suffering perhaps quite a lot of pain in various areas. It can help. It can also help you become more peaceful. You know, that the power of the mind is very important. And I think yoga helps to focus the power of the mind. So it supports healing. I would never claim that, you know, do yoga and you'll be cured. But it's part of a whole program of healing and treatment.
It's part of the holistic pie that you would introduce into your life.
Exactly. Nutrition is another thing, you know, and yoga would, any yoga therapist would also draw on some of the principles of, say, Ayurvedic principles for nutrition. But as you know from your own practice, eating the right foods and not eating certain foods is very, very important when you have illnesses like cancer.
Yeah. I had a really interesting lesson when I went to a funeral a couple of years ago of a family member, and I met Ron Hill there, and he was a marathon runner, and he was in his 90s, and he'd never missed a day's running in his life, and he attributed his health and fitness to his diet and his positive mind, and the fact that he just believed that age was no barrier to anything. And he used a number of things to actually keep himself fit and healthy. And it's part of what works for you, isn't it?
That's right. And I think that until you actually get, if you like, involved in your own treatment and you take your own responsibility, you don't wait for the third parties to do it all. You actually have to become positively involved in that process, and it will alter the way you feel about things. There is a tendency for us, understandably, to feel a bit like the victim. You know, it's fair. Why has this happened to me? Yeah. And no, it isn't fair, and no one knows why it happens. But equally, until one feels one is involved in doing something about it, one doesn't move away from that sense of it isn't fair, and it is important to overcome that.
In many respects, putting the yoga and the diet and things in place, it is about taking responsibility and taking back a level of control over it, and empowering yourself to see that fundamentally you can live your life in a very different way.
Yes. And some people find that maybe their life is shortened, but they live the rest of their life in a more, they get more out of their life. They start doing things differently, and as a result, the quality of their life improves, and they get more joy out of their life than they ever thought possible.
It is an interesting point, because I find that a lot of people, when faced with a time scale that they've got left, which is what often happens with the medical people, they will say, you have this long left. All of a sudden, they shed their skin and they shed the worries of absolutely everything. Suddenly, all those things just do not matter anymore. And it really does bring into, it brings your life into a different perspective.
Yes. I think that's the mind and the spirit, if one gets into yoga and starts to study things like the Yoga Sutras, one of the things that you start to become very aware of is the philosophy of yoga. In actual fact, the asanas are just a very, very small part of what yoga is all about. The postures, the asanas are the postures. And it is very much about the mind, and they talk a lot of it is about learning to achieve clarity and to stop the anxieties and stresses and all the obstacles that we face in our life, the blockages that impair us. We develop all sorts of conflicting emotions over life because of experiences, and we have to learn to identify and release them and say, and that's what sometimes facing a terminal illness does. It helps you to say, hey, that doesn't matter. It's not important. Whether someone is, I don't know, kind to you or not in the past doesn't matter. You're now in the present, and it's up to you what you do with the rest of your life.
I have that experience now every day working with my clients. They are an absolute inspiration and motivation to me, but also they show me how, the important aspects of life, in all honesty. And, because so many of them are going through such difficulties, but they turn life into miracles, and the joy that they get from life, absolutely, it's just inspiring, Karin. I can't explain how I feel sometimes about, my clients know. It's a really interesting point though as well that you say about the postures via the versus the mind work. I know when I did yoga years ago, when I started, we did a lot of breath work, we did a lot of meditation, far more than I do now in many respects. If I do my yoga practice, it was far less about the postures, and at least half the session at the end was us meditating, just breathing. Yes.
It sounds to me like you had a very good teacher.
It was in an arts community, so
yes.
It was a very different experience that I've had anywhere else, I have to say. And in many respects, I've gone off trying to find that person to work with ever since. And I kind of go to classes, and then I get really quite disillusioned by the instructor because they don't have the knowledge that he had. He had an incredible knowledge about not only yoga but philosophy in general, and he was just almost like a wise man who was at the front and just imparted incredible wisdom to me at the age of 20. Really did have a massive impact on my life.
Yes. I mean, I have had times when I sometimes if I get stressed, I get sometimes a migraine attack, and it just suddenly comes out of the blue, and I sort of stress levels have reached a certain point, and I have gone into a yoga class with a huge headache, migraine headache, and at the end of the class, it's gone completely, completely gone.
Yeah.
And as I said, there's been a huge amount of research now that is actually validating all of these and documenting and testing all these different benefits that can be achieved through yoga, but at the end of the day, I think that it's just something that one enjoys doing. Forget about the medical side. It's just simply something that helps improve one's quality of life.
Yes. Now, you've just recently been to India, haven't you, to deepen your own practice. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that, about what you did there?
Oh, it was a 2-week course on something called Bandha and Mudra, which I won't go into in too much detail because they basically are practices that you use with your when you're doing your yoga practice that enhance the effect of yoga and the metabolic effect of yoga. And it was just fantastic. It was a great experience. Chennai is a mad place. It's a huge city. It's everything. I don't know if any of your listeners saw the wonderful film, Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. And the sort of chaos of the roads and so on is absolutely like a documentary. I mean, traffic going everywhere, the little tuk-tuks, absolutely oblivious street lights, that was just interesting street furniture. Everyone just goes. You have whole families on motorbikes, and only the rider is wearing a helmet because the Indian law says that if you're riding a motorbike, you must have a helmet. So all the rest of the family, including the children, are not wearing helmets. And everyone's sitting there, and it's chaos, but it's a sort of joyful chaosness. And there was a group of us, and we just had a wonderful time. It was very different. When it flooded, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, the water came up to one's knees, and you had to wade through this. And God knows what was below, but you just didn't think about that.
Don't want to think about that at all.
No. But for 2 weeks, it was a mixture of lectures and practice. So we did at least 3 or 4 practices during the day. Some pranayama, some asana practice, and of course we were doing some of us did some Vedic chanting, which is wonderful. It's using sound and breath. And some of us did some yoga therapy. So it was a mixture of different things that we did in addition to the course. And of course there was all the theory. So we sort of were in class from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So it was quite hard work, but it was great fun. And we learned a huge amount.
Wow. And what's just piqued my interest there, you said you were learning about how to increase the metabolic effect within the body.
Yes.
Do you want to just explain that a little bit for me?
I'm not sure I can explain it very succinctly. It's quite a complex subject, to be perfectly honest. But I talked earlier on about the blockages, which in the Sanskrit word is a klesha blockages, and what they say is mudra produces heat, and it sort of burns. You can burn the kleshas. You get rid of the obstacles. And you use locks as well. So there is a tongue lock and a chin lock and they're different body locks. So it's a way of controlling the breath, the body, and it enhances the effect of the posture. So when you do the asana with these locks, you just get a different effect. It may look as if you're sitting, anyone who just walked into a room might look and say, these are people just sitting still in a position. And yet we're all, sweat was streaming down us because it was so heating. It was very, and it strengthened the postures, the effect of the postures, I mean.
Wow, so it's almost like turning up the volume.
Yes, it was. It's exactly that. It accelerates the effect of a posture. That's exactly it.
That's really fascinating. And so, just by locking the chin in a specific way, that is incredible.
And the tongue and the chin, and But it's not something I could easily explain.
No.
But it is fascinating. And when we do the breath work, pranayama, we would use them as well. And it is quite interesting how different you felt at the end of it.
So have you brought that practice back to the centre and back to what you're doing with people?
I mean, this was a sort of course that I did. I wouldn't. It's quite in advance. You wouldn't introduce that to people who were doing. You would deal with it quite gradually. In a structured fashion, but it's something for myself, And some of the teachers obviously would introduce it very carefully over time, but you wouldn't. That 2-week intense program that we did, we were all either studying to become yoga teachers, or we were yoga teachers. It's so we would be people who'd been doing yoga for a long time.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that to people who hadn't.
For coming in at the deep end.
Yes, that's right.
It's a bit like your weekend warriors.
Yes. Yes, there was one woman there who went regularly to class, but she hadn't been studying yoga, and she did struggle quite a lot. She was she kept going, but she did find it very difficult because she didn't have also the theoretical background, so she didn't understand everything. It was rather like coming halfway through, a course and struggling, not because you're not capable of doing it, but just simply you didn't know what went on beforehand, so you didn't have the foundations. But they are transformational, and it was a wonderful experience.
So, if you were to give 3 key points of to my audience about how they go about either starting to practice yoga, what would you suggest?
I think that the first thing I would do is to go along to some classes, and there are so many different approaches to teaching yoga, and the only way you continue doing it is if you enjoy what you're doing. So if you go to a class and you find that it's either it's a class with 30 people in it, 20 to 30 people, or a class where you didn't enjoy the experience, don't assume that that's how it always is. It's worth trying trying somewhere different. The risk with doing these classes where they're sort of 30 plus people, 25, 30 people, is that the teacher does not have the time to go around and to really observe what everyone's doing and to give help to those people and modifications, suggest appropriate modifications to people who are not ready to do a particular posture. So it becomes one of these, they demonstrate, and you see sometimes teachers and they're standing in front of the class and they're doing their own practice effectively, and they're saying, oh, lovely, lovely, and they're having a wonderful time, but it's not necessarily what the class is having.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a word that we use often, mindfulness, and I think that anyone wanting to start should look ideally for a smaller group class so that they can get more individual attention to help them, and they must enjoy the approach of the teacher. And because one works better than one, it's not about right or wrong, it's about what works for you. And then the other thing is you've got to keep at it, because initially your body might feel really stiff and awkward. Don't force your body, it'll come. The more you force your body, in fact, the more you stiffen and harden your body, and the more likely you are to have an injury, and the more painful it is. If you find that it's difficult to touch your toes, it doesn't matter. You're actually doing a back extension, so it doesn't matter if you don't go all the way down to the floor. You can put your hands on your shin. Mm-hmm. And it's perfectly valid. What's important is how you extend the back. I think that's the sort of thing that I would be advising someone to look out for, to not to get someone who's trying to make everyone do it the same way, that everyone's body is different. We carry different injuries from the past. We are built structurally differently, So I'm uncomfortable when people say teachers say it must be in this way and this way only. And then I think just enjoy it.
Yeah. And I do think that people, I meet some people and they've got it as part of their schedule, and it's just another thing on their to-do list that they're now ticking off.
Yes. I used to find when I was working very, very hard and in a very stressful job that I'd come back, go to my class, and that was the day gone. All the stresses and strains of the day disappeared. At the end of the class, I felt like I was renewed, reborn. And I think that's how if a class is successful, that's how you feel. And most importantly, don't try to be competitive. It doesn't matter what anyone else is doing in the room. You do what is right for you and not try to keep up with everyone else. It's not a competition.
That was one of my biggest learnings, to be honest, over the years. Trying not to be competitive about anything, never mind yoga. Karin. Now, Karin, do you want to give out some details about Boco and how people find you and contact you, and to have the incredibly different experience that lots of people have spoken to me about?
Well, I think the first thing that people might like to do is to look at our website to find out more about us. We also have a little video on the website where some of our members talk about what they've gained out of it. And I hasten to add that we didn't coach them on anything. So we didn't know what they were going to say until they said it. And our website is www.boco, which is spelled BOCO, -UK.com. Or if they haven't got internet access, if they'd like to call us, our telephone number is 0208 399 3930. We are in Surbiton, very, very close to the YMCA, about 5 minutes walk from the railway station.
And that's Surbiton in the UK, for everybody.
Surbiton in Surrey.
Today on Food for Thought, I've had the absolutely lovely Karin Worthy from Boco, and go and learn yoga at this centre. I've never had so many people talk to me about a yoga centre as they have about this one. So there has to be something really, really different about it going on. Thank you so much, Karin.
My pleasure. We look forward to seeing everyone, and enjoy your life. Don't make it miserable.
Couldn't have put it better.
Anyway, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.